I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
DJ and PK, we're joined right now by Mark Durrant. You hear him on BYU radio broadcast for the basketball games, along with Greg Wrubell. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Hey, guys. Always a pleasure.
So the last 2 days have been pretty busy with guys hitting the portal. It looks like you're going to have to meet a bunch of new basketball players and get to know them. Does this surprise you at all, or is this the way you figured it was going to go?
No, I mean, I don't think any of us are surprised at this point. I remember thinking, this season calling games, there were several games that the opponent had no one back from last year, a completely new team. And then there'd be the guys that, that had been on 5 different teams. So that's the way it goes. And you can complain about it. And I'm an old school guy, so I think back to the old days a little bit, but complaining about it's not going to change anything. And it's like trying to hold back the dam with a thimble, and so you just kind of go with the flow and try and know the system as best you can and take advantage of where you can and put together the best team you can and try and get some chemistry with that team you put together. So until something changes, that's kind of where we're at, and no use complaining about it. Just kind of do your best with what you can do.
Yeah, there's no question that it is a system-wide issue. It's not particular to any particular school that you have this enormous turnover. I'm wondering, going forward with Kevin Young, as he's figuring things out, he's only going into his 3rd season as a college basketball coach, and he takes over in probably the most turbulent of times and chaotic times ever, and nevertheless you have to negotiate and navigate it. With that in mind, what would you say would be the best way for BYU to approach it? Could it be continue to do what you do, or try to find some stability so you're not overhauling the roster, even if that is possible?
Yeah, I mean that's the great question for Kevin Young, and I think he comes from a unique place with the NBA, and you're starting to see, I think, more NBA guys, coach North Carolina from the Nuggets, Malone, and I think that helps to come from an NBA mindset where it's more like what we're seeing now, players getting in. And anyway, I've been thinking about this a little bit, Pat, and I think the formula for BYU would be. I mean, listen, it's an LDS institution, so I think that the number one thing is you try and get the best LDS talent. Now, that's always been the case, except for when they took me. I was a mediocre talent, but well, it
was a favor because they got your brother.
Yeah, they did. They did. I was a legacy, but you always have wanted to get the best LDS talent, but the pool now is bigger than it ever was, and the best LDS players are better than when I played. But what you have to do is not just assume that a kid is LDS, that he's going to come to BYU. You need to pay them what they would get paid anywhere, and so you try and get the best LDS talent there. Whether that's 2, 3, 4 guys. And one of the reasons I say that, because it just makes sense, because it's an LDS school, but also when you've got historical ties and religious ties to an institution, you may have a little bit more stability. I mean, obviously, LDS guys transfer out of BYU all the time, but there might be a better chance to keep those kids and have a little bit better structure. And then, of course, you're not going to be successful unless you're heavily involved in the transfer portal. So you're always going to have 4 or 5 guys that are transfer portal guys and obviously you need guys that have proven themselves. I think it's a world today where there's no more kind of projects. And I think BYU had several project guys who that are enticing. You think, well, if I can just work with these guys for a few years, they're going to be a good player someday. I think that those days are gone where you can't afford to invest time in project players that might produce someday, because even if they do get good, then they probably will leave at that point and go somewhere else. So you've got to have proven commodities from where they were before and get guys out of the transfer portal. And then it's a matter of maybe one, maybe two. I mean, the freshman, the idea of bringing in a freshman is become much more risky and complicated because they don't have that track record, even if they're really – I mean, they have to be really good out of high school so you kind of know what you're getting. But even the best high school players sometimes don't translate great into college. And so, I mean, it's just too risky to go with freshmen and projects. So you're looking at try and keep the core guys you can, get best LDS kids you can, and pay them – and then get the transfer kids in. I don't think this is new to anybody, and that's the world, like I said, we live in. The Michigans of the world bringing in transfers. That's how and that's just how it's done. But I do think that Kevin Young is in a good spot to handle that because he has had experience in the NBA game, and he's not kind of like me, who's in the old school guy, kind of pining for how it was. He's like, no, this is what I know. I'm not worried about what has gone on 20 years ago. And he's, I think, in a good position to be able to kind of navigate this. And also, he's a young guy. He's going to make mistakes, but I think he's really driven to succeed. And so I think he's learning and picking up the things that he needs to do from year to year, and we'll get better and better as we go.
If the rumors about Colin Chandler leaving Kentucky and transferring to BYU are true, then does that set a new path for bounce-back kids, which we haven't really seen, but he played in Farmington. He goes away because, of course, we all think of Kentucky as a feeder school, obviously. But to your point about freshmen, he only plays 10 minutes. He shoots 36%. His shooting numbers, his field goal percentage, his three-point field goal percentage, they come way up. Even as a sophomore, he's struggling late in the season at the end of the SEC tournament, and he did not shoot it well in their 2 NCAA tournament games. But if he's learning, growing, getting bigger, stronger, maybe as a junior he's ready to go. So does it become a case of, yes, they're going to be church members getting recruited to BYU, but not as freshmen. You recruit them, you get to know them, you stay in touch with them, and then for the guys who get better, you bring them back sophomore, junior, senior season, whatever it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think that's probably where a lot will happen. Obviously, BYU is taking a couple of LES freshmen this year. So that I think will always be part of it. But again, it's and certainly BYU would have loved to take Colin. I mean, they wanted to take Colin as a freshman, and because Mark Pope went to Kentucky, he had that connection that he went there. But there are other LES kids out there, a couple Clemson kids and others that have kind of shown that they can compete at a high level and contribute. And you don't even have to. I mean, you don't have to be superstars. You just need to show that you can make a team better and can contribute and give minutes. And so I think that, again, the risk level for a junior Colin Chandler is much better than the freshman Colin Chandler, although you would have gladly taken that risk with him. But with that said, I mean, everybody now knows that Colin Chandler is a great three-point shooter and is a super athlete and is on a track to be like a Richie Saunders, where, you make that jump from a sophomore where he was really good on a Kentucky team and he could really be a superstar these next 2 years. But because of that, now that the risk is gone, you have to pay more, and he's going to have to, show up with the Brinks truck with him. But to your original question, yes, I mean, I think that's ideal that a kid goes out, shows what he can do. Maybe his heart growing up, he's a BYU fan, or because of the religious ties that he would like that experience at BYU. And then at that point, he's kind of proven himself, and you can feel more confident, even if you have to pay him, in bringing him back.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
In Portland, I was up there, and after the game, after the formal press conference, me and a couple other guys were waiting for Kevin Young, and he saw us there, so he stopped, very accommodating. And one of the things he said is that, he's going hard for shooters. To him, shooting is the holy grail of recruiting. All right, I can buy that. How do you balance that with guys that want to defend too? Because obviously that was a weakness for the Cougars.
Yeah, I think that was a big miss for him, and he regrets it. Although, obviously when you talk about this year, you're talking about injuries. Dawson Baker would have been a decent three-point shooter, and Pickens might have been okay. But you basically on this year's team, you had Richie, who was an elite three-point shooter, and then AJ and Rob. Rob turned out to be a pretty good three-point shooter.
Yeah.
AJ was serviceable. He was good, probably his biggest weakness, but still very good. So you had three guys that were decent. Moo Davis was incredibly streaky. He'll have 5 threes in a second half and then misses the next 30. So once Richie was out, so your elite shooter's gone, and then everybody's kind of focused on Rob and AJ because they know there's no one else is going to make shots. Kostic was a little bit streaky. He was good at times, but you just had no shooters, and you just can't get away with that in college basketball. So there might have been some unique situations where because of AJ's how amazing he was and singular talent that he was, that you just couldn't invest in getting shooters, and maybe that was it, or the injuries, whatever it was. But BYU was left in a tough spot where they didn't have shooters, and I think that's where that was coming from Coach Young. Regardless of who's on my team, I got to have guys that can make some shots from the three. It's just too important for college basketball. Yes, if you're like Arizona or Michigan with unbelievable size and athleticism at all spots, maybe you don't have to rely on that. But for the rest of the world, you better have some shooters. And the year before, BYU had a plethora, as Guapo would say, of shooters, and they could play 10, 11 guys. And this team was just so thin on the shooting. So I think Coach Young was stung by that. He might have tried to plan for it, but it didn't work out. And so now he's going to make sure that whatever I've got, I'm going to have guys that can make a three, because it's just too big of what you need in college basketball. Any level of basketball really nowadays, it's the 3-point shot that can really make a difference.
BYU is 59th in defensive rating, and Arizona, Michigan were 1 and 2. And all the 1 and 2 seeds seemed like they were top 10 or top 12 in defensive rating. So if you really want to be elite, you got to be elite there. You mentioned size. Rob Wright, best case scenario, looked his matchup in the eye, but probably was giving up size. Kebaketa gave up size against the better teams. This was an undersized team in multiple positions. Do you think that changes going forward? And he'll put – I don't know if he's going to bring in Harms to, be 7'3" and stand there at the rim and turn everyone away. Maybe he will be. What do you think as far as getting bigger players?
Well, I'm a guy that BYU historically, they've certainly had some good big guys, but like a Hoffa or whoever, but they've had a lot of really overperforming kind of smaller guys, the McKelly Wesleys, the Fusini Traore's, the Kebaketas. They really haven't had a lot of 7'2" guys that are capable scorers and rim protectors. And I think, just again, in today's basketball, the big man maybe is a little less important, but you look at those guys, Michigan's, Arizona, that guy caused unbelievable problems for BYU down low. Texas, their big guy was the reason they won that game, and BYU struggled against teams with really, really good big men. And you can't just Keba was one of my all-time favorites. He was a walking highlight film, and he could block shots, but he was undersized, and that comes not just in rim protection, but giving up rebounds and all those things. It just you have to have big bodies, and not only big bodies, but you have to have an offensive presence down low. and what guys like Trissini and McKelly and other guys that I've referenced, they were great scorers down low. So even though they're giving up size, they could score for you. When you don't have anyone that can score in the paint with the back to the basket, that just limits you and makes it easier for teams defensively to stop you. So not only do you need a big 7'2" guy, but he's got to be able to score the basket. Now, this is something every team in the country wants.
Yeah,
right.
And so there's high demand for those guys. But if BYU can somehow manage to get one of those types of guys, doesn't need to be scoring 30 points a game, but get 10 points a game, 7-footer, just lurking back there, I think that would really, really help BYU. I think of Utah teams over the years, and they haven't been great the last 20 years or so, but man, they put several big guys in the NBA, that type of guy. And I think if BYU could just find a way to get somebody like that, it could really help their prospects.
It was a lot of fun to have A.J. Dembosa in the program, and the kid just is so charming, and wow, what a kid. I don't know that you're going to find a better representative who's only going to be here 1 year and is not an LDS kid and doesn't come from Utah and all that. He was just a gem. Now we're all going to root for him going forward. You had a front row seat every single time he put the ball on the floor and did his thing, and it was just amazing. Forecast for us what you think he'll be as far as a pro, ranging from a decent player, an occasional all-star, perennial all-star, Hall of Fame. Where do you think?
Yeah, it was a kind of a thrill for me to watch him. Obviously, the season wasn't ideal how it turned out for BYU, but it was a fun season, and watching him was like,
yeah,
it was really cool.
Right.
And I love that he was so in on BYU, and I credit a lot to his parents. Ace is a great guy, and they just kept him humble and kept him thinking right. And he was a great teammate, giving gifts to his teammates because he could, and he cares about a lot of things other than basketball, but he loves basketball. And I'd go to these these optional shoot-arounds on the road, and he was always there, always working, and he would work so hard. He was constantly working on his game, and he wants to get better. He loves the game, and you see that as a characteristic of the greats. So, but in answer to your question, I was talking to Matt Carlino, who's a former BYU player who does the color at TCU, and he comes up to me, and this was him, and he said, I think AJ is going to be the face of the NBA for the next 20 years.
Wow.
And I think he can be that guy. I mean, because of the charisma and his, he just has that nature about him that would make people like him. And I think he's got the game. And because he works hard, he's gonna get better and better. But what he can do, and then you take him out of college and put him in the NBA where there's better spacing and they protect the offense a little bit more. I think watching him do that little pull-up jumper.
Yeah.
Obviously no one will ever be as good as Michael Jordan probably, but you see things from great players in what he does, whether it's Kevin Durant or Michael Jordan, that pull-up jumper that, it just looks really cool to watch him do what he does. And I think he will be a perennial all-star and could end up being a Hall of Famer, and will be someone that if he does do that, whatever happens, he's going to be proud of that he went to BYU and will rep BYU and will be paying dividends for BYU bringing him in for many, many years to come. I think he's going to be one of the greats, and I can't wait to see what happens for him.
Well, Mark, we'll clip and save that. Turn you into Nostradamus.
I agree with you, Mark.
Well, Pat, one of the things I like about you most is you agree with me on things.
Mark, thanks for joining us here. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again.
Yeah, I love you guys. Anytime, man.
All right. Mark Durrant, you hear him on the radio broadcast with Greg Wrubell for BYU basketball.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.